Picture a factory. Now take away the electricity, take away the machines, the time clock, the paycheck, the shifts. Leave the production quotas exactly where they are. 27 plates of food a day, every day, forever. 16 loaves of bread a week. 800 quarts of vegetables and fruit sealed into glass every single year, by hand over a wood fire in August. Every shirt, every dress, every apron worn by 9 human beings, cut and stitched at home. Add a garden half an acre wide that answers to 1 person. Add 7 children under 15. Add the rule that none of this work is ever finished, none of it is ever paid, and almost none of it is ever seen. That's the kitchen of an old order Amish farm in Holmes County, Ohio in 1955. One of the largest Amish settlements on earth, and one of the quietest. A place with no wires running to the house, and no tractor in the barn, sitting in the middle of the fastest, loudest, most electrified country in human history. A place where the neighbours half a mile away are watching television tonight, and you're trimming a kerosene wick with sewing scissors. A place where you could feed 40 grown men a full dinner at noon, and have every dish washed, dried and shelved before the outside world even noticed that anything had happened. We're going back there tonight. Not as tourists slowing down on Route 39 with a camera out the car window. We're living it. 1 day, 1 woman, 1 year. Everything she would have seen, smelled, carried, kneaded, scrubbed, stitched, and survived. One honest thing before we start, because this channel keeps its accounts square. The county is real. The farms are real. The prices, the wash day rules, the canning numbers, the wedding customs. Those are real, taken from the people who studied them and the people who lived them. But the woman whose hands you're about to borrow is stitched together from 100 women who never wrote anything down at all, because writing about yourself was not something a humble person did. The rooms are true. The eyes are on loan. I'll tell you, as we go, when a custom belonged to some districts and not others, because the Amish are not one rule, they are 100 small ones, and the difference between one church district and the next can be the difference between a gasoline engine and a pair of aching arms. So, I make these history stories, and honestly I still have no idea whether anyone actually sleeps to them, or whether you're all just weirdos who want to know exactly how many quarts of green beans it takes to get 9 people through an Ohio winter. Either way, subscribe if you want. Get comfortable. Here we go. Your hands are already working before your head fully wakes. That's the truth of it. And it's the first thing you'd want anyone to understand about your life. The day does not begin when you decide to begin it. The day begins in your hands. It is 4:30 in the morning, the kitchen is the colour of the inside of a closed eye, and your fingers are finding the stove lids of the big black range by memory. The smooth, worn edge of the front lid, the lifter hanging on its nail to the right, the firebox door with the small burr of rough iron at the corner that has snagged your knuckle 1,000 times and will never once catch you again, 'cause your hand remembers it better than your mind remembers anything. Your hands know before your head wakes. They always have. You rake the grate. Under the grey ash of last night's fire there is still a seam of orange, faint as a secret, and you feel the heat of it rise against your wrist like breath. Corn cobs first, a handful from the basket, dry as paper, they catch with a sound like someone crumpling a letter. Then the split kindling, laid crosswise. Then 2 chunks of seasoned oak from the wood box that your son filled last evening because that is his work, the way this is yours. You set the drafts. The fire finds its voice. A low, hollow rushing in the chimney pipe, the first sound of the day that isn't sleep. The fire first, then the bread, then the day. The smell of the kitchen at 4:30 is layers, and you know every one of them. The sharp mineral smell of cold ash and stove blacking. Yesterday's fried side pork gone thin and sweet in the cold air. The yeasty, beery breath of the bread sponge you set last night, rising under a clean flour sack towel on the shelf behind the stove, where the warmth of the dying fire kept it alive through the dark. Underneath all of it, the smell of the house itself. Kerosene, lye soap, wet wool drying, milk and children. A house that holds 9 people smells like 9 people. That includes you. There will be no bath until Saturday. Nobody in this house thinks that's strange, because it isn't. Not here, not yet. Welcome to a farm outside Charm, Ohio, Holmes County. It is a Monday in the last week of April, 1955. Your name is Mary. You are 34 years old. You've been married for 15 of those years to a man named Eli, who is at this moment pulling on his boots in the dark bedroom above your head. You can hear the 2 soft knocks of his heels against the floorboards, a sound as regular as a clock striking, and just as much a part of how you tell time. You are the mother of 7 living children. Sarah, who is 14 and finished with school now. Amos, 12. The twins, Dan and Davy, 8 years old and 1 soul between them as far as mischief is concerned. Anna, 6. Levi, 4. And Lydia, 10 months. Asleep in the crib pushed against the warm chimney wall upstairs, who will wake the moment the smell of frying reaches her, with the precision of a barn cat. 7 children is not remarkable here. It is not even worth mentioning. Down the road, the bishop's wife raised 11. Nobody at church would say a word about it either way, because saying words about it either way would be a kind of pride, and pride is the one crop this county has agreed not to grow. You uncover the sponge. It has doubled in the night, pale and blistered and alive, smelling of wheat and something older than wheat. You dig your fist into the flour barrel. 25 pounds of it came into this house 8 days ago, and most of it is already gone. And you begin working flour into the sponge with your hands, because this is not something you do with a spoon. You do it by feel. The dough tells your palms when it has taken enough. It stops being sticky and starts being silky. It pushes back against the heel of your hand like something with opinions. 8 loaves worth. You will bake twice this week, today and again on Friday. 8 loaves each time, and by next Monday there will be 1 heel of 1 loaf left, and someone will argue over it. 16 loaves a week. Around 800 loaves a year, out of this 1 pair of hands, out of this 1 black stove. Nobody counts that. Nobody counts this work at all. It only gets counted when it doesn't happen. You set the dough to rise in the big crockery bowl, cover it, and slide it to the warm end of the shelf. Outside the east window, the sky over the neighbour's woodlot has gone from black to the deep blue-grey of wet slate. The windmill in the barnyard turns over once, twice, with its dry creak. Wind from the south, which means the day will be fair, which matters more than almost anything else that could happen today. Because today is Monday, and Monday, in this county, in this year, in this life, means exactly one thing: wash day. But before the wash, there is everything else, because the wash is not instead of the day's work. It is in addition to it. You dress in the half-dark of the downstairs bedroom, and even this is work with rules in it. The dress is a deep plum colour, almost black in this light, cut and sewed by you at your own treadle machine from cloth you chose off the dry goods shelf in Berlin at 49 cents a yard. There is no pattern from a paper envelope. The pattern is in your head, and in your mother's head before yours, and in her mother's before that. Cape over the bodice, apron over the skirt, and down the front no buttons. Buttons on a dress would be fancy, and fanciers adore this community closed a long time ago. But hooks and eyes, small black metal ones set by hand, and you fasten them by feel, top to bottom, your fingers moving down the row the way another woman's might move over piano keys. In Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where your husband's cousins live, the women pin their dresses shut with straight pins, a dozen or more, points hidden in the cloth. Here in Holmes County it is hooks and eyes. Neither side thinks about it much, and neither side would dream of switching. And if you want to understand the Amish, that sentence is a better door in than any book. Your hair has not been cut since you were born. You brush it out, wind it flat, part it in the middle, and pin it into a bun at the back of your neck, and over it you set the cap. The head covering of white organdy, pleated, its strings hanging loose. You made this too. You make about 4 a year, and each one takes an evening of fine work under the lamp, the pleats pressed in with a sad iron heated on the stove, narrow as the ribs of a leaf. A woman prays with her head covered. A woman is, as far as anyone here can remember, never not about to pray. So the cap goes on at 4:30 in the morning, and comes off when the lamp is out at night, and your daughters will wear it, and their daughters, and no one in this house has ever once discussed it, the way no one discusses gravity. Then the lamps. This is the chore the outside world never thinks of when it thinks about a house with no electricity, and the outside world is thinking about houses like yours more and more. Now that its own houses glow, light in this house is a thing you make fresh every day, like food. 4 kerosene lamps and the tall Aladdin lamp with its glowing mantle for the kitchen table, and every single morning each one must be tended. Chimneys washed in soapy water and polished clear with newspaper, because a smoked chimney steals half your light. Wicks trimmed straight across with the scissors, because a ragged wick burns crooked and stinks. Fonts filled from the kerosene can in the wash-house, through the little tin funnel, without spilling a drop on your clean apron. 15 minutes, every day, just to make tonight possible. The English farms around you, English is simply what you call everyone who is not Amish, whether their grandfathers came from England or Naples. Flip this chore off their list 20 years ago, when the High Line came down the road. The line runs past your farm too. It does not turn in. That is not an accident. That is a decision, made and remade every year, and you are one of the people it is made for. By 5 o'clock you're in the barn, and so is half your family. Milking is not men's work or women's work, it is hands' work, and this farm needs every hand it has. 11 cows. Eli and Amos take their stools down one side, you and Sarah take the other. Dan and Davy fork hay down from the mow, and are told twice to stop sliding in it. The barn is warm with animal heat and smells of cow breath, silage, manure and dust. A smell so much the floor of your world that you would only notice it if it were gone. You milk with your forehead resting against the cow's warm flank, and the milk goes into the pail in that 2-beat rhythm, shh, that you have heard every morning of your entire life. Your hands ache for the first minute, and then remember themselves. The barn cats sit in a row, just out of kicking range, insolent as deacons, waiting for the squirt Amos will send them when his father isn't looking. His father is always looking. His father lets it go. The milk is strained and poured into tall steel cans, and the cans go into the concrete tank of cold water in the milk house to wait for the truck. The milk hauler comes daily out of Sugar Creek and takes your cans to the cheese house, because that is where Amish milk goes in this county, into Swiss cheese. The cheese houses take milk in cans from farms without electric coolers, and they pay for it, not richly, but steadily, and that check is the spine of this farm's cash for the year. Some things about this arrangement are starting to shift out in the wide world. Men in offices writing new rules about bulk tanks and refrigeration. Eli reads about it in the Budget, the weekly paper out of Sugar Creek that every Amish home in America reads, and he says nothing and folds the paper, and that is how you know he is thinking about it. You are back in the kitchen by 6 with 2 pails of fresh milk, and now the kitchen becomes what it will be, off and on, 14 more times this week. A place that must produce a full meal for 9 people, from raw materials, on schedule, without fail. Breakfast this morning is fried cornmeal mush and eggs and side pork and bread and butter and jam and coffee and milk. The mush was made yesterday. Cornmeal boiled long in the afternoon, poured into bread pans, chilled overnight in the cellar into a firm loaf. Now you turn it out and slice it and lay the slices into hot lard in the big cast iron skillets, where they spit and hiss and slowly build the crisp brown crust that is the entire point of mush. Eggs from your own hens, 10 of them, cracked one-handed while the other hand turns pork. Bread from Friday's baking, toasted on the stovetop. Your own butter. Your own strawberry jam from your own strawberries, sealed into this jar by your own hands 10 months ago in a kitchen so hot the windows sweated. You move between skillet and table without wasted steps, the way a good hand moves between cows. There is a grammar to a working kitchen, and you have been fluent since you were 9. And here is a piece of arithmetic worth lying awake with, so I'll say it slowly. 9 people, 3 meals, that is 27 plates a day, close to 10,000 plates a year, and every one of them begins as something with dirt on it, or feathers, or a hide, or chaff. There is no store bread in this house, no boughten cookies, no cans with bright paper labels except what little, oranges, salt, sugar, coffee, the farm cannot make. When I say you cook from scratch, I need you to understand what that means on this farm in 1955. This isn't a modern Cook Browning hamburger from the store. The chicken on your table scratched in your yard on Thursday. The flour in your bread was wheat. In the field you can see from the sink. Scratch is not a method here. It is a location. Lydia wakes, as prophesied, at the first smell of pork and announces it. Sarah goes up for her without being asked. 14 means you're half a mother already in this house, and comes down with the baby on her hip, and Levi trailing, flush with sleep, dragging one sock. The twins thunder in from the barn. Anna sets the table, 9 places, counting out forks like a small bank teller. Eli comes in last, washes at the iron sink with its little hand pump. Rainwater from the cistern under the porch, soft water, the only kind worth washing in, and takes his chair at the head of the table, and the moment he sits, all noise stops. Silent grace. Every head bows. Even Lydia goes quiet in the high chair, because even 10 months old is old enough to feel a room change. No words are spoken. The prayer is in the silence, and the silence lasts as long as Eli's bowed head lasts, and when he lifts it and reaches for the bread, the day's permission has been granted, and 9 hands move at once. You eat standing up more than sitting, between the stove and Lydia's bib and the coffee pot. You would not call it a hardship. You would not call it anything. It is simply the shape of a mother at a table, and your own mother ate this way, in this same kitchen for 30 years. This was her house before it was yours, and her mother's before that. 3 generations of women have stood in the worn place on the floorboards where you're standing now. The wood is dished out there, actually hollowed, an inch lower than the boards around it, scrubbed pale as bone. The English have a word, housewife, and it has always struck you as a small word, a word for a woman with one house and nothing in it. There is a better way to say what you are, and it is the way this community actually reckons it. The farm is a body with 2 halves, and Eli runs one half and you run the other, and neither half is worth anything alone. He commands the fields, the herd, the horses, the machinery, the money from the milk. You command the house, the garden, the poultry, the cellar, the cloth, the food, and the money from the eggs. And your half feeds his half 3 times a day. Nobody here would ever say the wife works for the husband. They would say, and they do say, that the 2 of them work the place. When a man in this county is asked how he manages such a farm, there is an old answer, half a joke and all true: I married well. By 6:30, Eli and Amos are gone to the fields. It is oat sowing weather, and the team is already hitched. Sarah is washing the breakfast dishes, Anna is drying, and you are standing in the washhouse doorway looking at the biggest single physical undertaking of your week. Monday, wash day, for a family of 9. Let me tell you exactly what that means, because I promise you it does not mean what it means anywhere else in America this morning. Start with the water, because everything on this farm starts with water, and water is heavy. A gallon weighs a little over 8 pounds. A full wash for 9 people will want something like 50 gallons before the day is done. Wash water, rinse water, bluing water, and not one drop of it arrives by turning a tap on a wall. The windmill pumps for the stock tank and the milk house. The house runs on the cistern, and the cistern runs on your arms. So the first hour of wash day is carrying, bucket after bucket, from the cistern pump to the copper boiler and the big kettles on the washhouse stove, where a fire has been burning since before breakfast, built and fed by you, because cold water does not wash farm dirt, and farm dirt is what this family manufactures 6 days a week. Manure, axle grease, milk, mud, blood sometimes. Barn trousers can very nearly stand up on their own by Saturday. You know women who count the carrying in trips. You count it in shoulders. By the end of the carrying, your shoulders have that deep, warm, pulled feeling, like bread dough that has been worked just past enough. Now the machine. And here is where I have to be honest with you about the Amish, because this is where books get lazy and say the Amish reject machines. They do not reject machines, they weigh them. Standing in the middle of your washhouse floor on 4 legs is a wringer washer, round steel tub, a dasher inside to swing the clothes, and bolted underneath it a small gasoline engine, single cylinder, with a foot pedal to kick it awake and a flexible pipe that runs its blue exhaust out through a hole bored in the washhouse wall. Your church district weighed the gasoline washing machine engine years ago and allowed it, and the reasoning was exactly as practical as it sounds. No wire comes onto the place. No worldly connection is made, and a mother of 7 gets her Monday back. But drive 20 minutes south of here, into the lowest, strictest districts, the Swartzentruber people, who broke away from the main body of Holmes County churches back around the years before the First War, and who hold the old line harder than anyone, and the same Monday wash is done with arms, a lever worked back and forth, 1,000 strokes, or with a washboard and a bar of soap and nothing else. Same county, same clothes, same God, different Ordnung. That is the word, the body of unwritten rules each district keeps, voted on by its own members, recited twice a year, and binding as weather. In some districts the engine, in some districts the arms. Nobody in this county finds that strange, and by the time this night is over, I don't think you will either. You kick the engine. It takes on the third try, catches with a rattling putt-putt-putt that sends a shiver up through the floorboards and out across the yard, and every farm within half a mile that hears it knows exactly what it means, the way they know the school bell. It means what their own engines mean. Monday, everywhere, all at once. The soap is your own. That is not a figure of speech. In a crock in the corner of this wash-house are pale, hard, ugly bars of soap you made last winter from lye, and the strained fat saved at butchering, the whole year's grease, boiled and worked and poured into a wooden frame, cut into bars with a string, cured on a board like cheese. It is harsh, it smells faintly of history, and it strips barn dirt out of denim like nothing money can buy. You shave curls of it off the bar with a knife into the hot water, and the water goes grey slick and starts to smell like every Monday since your childhood. And now the order of battle, because a wash this size is not a chore, it is a campaign, and the campaign has doctrine. Whites first, always, while the water is cleanest and hottest, the Sunday shirts, the caps, the aprons, the sheets, the flour sack towels, then light colours, then the dresses, then the everyday shirts and trousers, then the barn clothes last into water that by now looks like the bottom of a pond, because there is no changing 50 gallons for the pleasure of it. Between machine and rinse tub stands the wringer, 2 rubber rollers, hand-fed, and this is the one piece of equipment in your world that you've never once in your life stopped respecting. Every woman in this county knows a woman who has been caught in a wringer. Fingers, a hand, the flat of a forearm, drawn in exactly the way it draws in a sheet, and a sheet is what it thinks everything is. You feed it standing slightly aside, the way Eli stands beside a horse he trusts, and you have taught Sarah to do the same, and this morning Sarah is across the rinse tub from you, catching what the rollers hand through, and you watch her hands without watching her, the way your mother watched yours. Sarah at 14 is done with school. 8 grades in the one-room schoolhouse a mile up the road, and that is the whole of it, for her as for you, as for everyone here. What she is in now is the other school, the one with no name, in which a girl between 14 and marriage learns from her mother the entire operating system of an Amish household. The wash is a course in that school. So is bread, so is butchering, so is the garden. 10 years from now she'll run a house like this one with her own hands, and every motion she will use is being set into her this year and next. The way type is set into a page. This morning she is silent and a little sullen, because she's 14 and it is not yet 7 in the morning, and her forearms are wet to the elbow, and you let the sullenness pass without a word, because your mother let yours pass in this same steam, at this same tub. It gets lighter, not the wash. The girl, load after load, the engine putts, the dasher swings its slow figure, hum, hum, hum. Steam climbs the washhouse window, and the world outside goes soft and white, and your hands move through water so hot it makes the bones ache, then ring, then shake, then into the basket. Diapers alone are a load of their own. Lydia is 10 months old, and a baby in cloth runs through 24 diapers between one Monday and the next, everyone boiled, wrung and hung. By 8 o'clock the first baskets are ready for the line, and the line is where wash day stops being labour and becomes publishing. Understand something about the world you live in. This is a community with no telephones in the houses, no radio, no television, no newspaper except the weekly, and a road between farms. And yet news moves through this county faster than the county paper could ever print it. It moves by buggy, at the cheese house, over fences after church. And on Monday mornings it moves by clothesline, because every farmwife's line hangs in plain sight of the road and of her neighbours, and every woman who passes can read it, and I mean read. A line hung before 7 says this house rises early and runs right. A line hung at 10 starts a small, silent question mark over your kitchen that can take a season to erase. The order of hanging is grammar. Whites together at the far end, catching the best sun, sheets pinned corner to corner so they billow instead of flap. Dresses hung by the shoulders in a row that runs from your own dark plum down through Sarah's, Anna's, down to garments hardly bigger than a potholder. A full sentence, that row, spelling out the size and shape of a whole family to anyone driving by. Trousers by the waistband, all facing one way, like a congregation. Diapers in their own white battalion. You would never say any of this aloud, and neither would any woman you know, and every single one of you does it every Monday without fail. A well-hung line is the only public record this life keeps of a woman's work. Nobody counts this work, but on Monday morning everybody reads it. The wind out of the south fills the first sheet like a sail the moment you pin its second corner. A fat, clean crack of wet cotton, and the smell that comes off a line of laundry in an April wind, like soap and cold water and sun, is a smell the English will spend the next 70 years trying to put into a plastic bottle. They will never get it. You get it for free, 52 Mondays a year, and it is one of perhaps 5 luxuries you would admit to owning. From your line, on this rise, you can see 3 other farms and 3 other lines. To the north, Mandy Troyer's, short, sparse, precise. A widow's line, 1 dress, aprons, sheets, everything hung with 40 years of authority, up since 6:30 naturally. To the east, the Rabers, a line as long as a fence row. They have 11 children, and their Monday is a thing you do not envy. And down across the creek hollow to the south, the small new line of Katie Yoder, who came into this district as a bride 2 years ago, 22 years old now, 1 baby at her skirts, and, though it is not a thing anyone would say out loud yet, to a woman with eyes, in the family way again, early days yet, and carrying it tired. Her line this morning is up, but thin, and hung a little out of order, white scattered among the colours like a sentence with the words shuffled. You stand a moment with a wet apron over your arm and read that line, and file what it says away in the place where women here keep such things. Nobody wrote anything, nobody rang anyone. But by 8 o'clock on this Monday morning in April, you know that the young wife across the hollow is running behind and running heavy, and that someone before long ought to happen to be passing her lane with a reason to stop in. Keep that thread pinned where it is. It is going to matter before the snow flies. Back inside, the bread is crowned over the rim of the bowl, and the wash-house campaign has to share you now with the oven, because on this farm nothing gets a day to itself, not even Monday. You punch the dough down, it sighs, a warm wheaty exhale against your wrist. Divide it. Shape 8 loaves with a rolling tuck of the palms you could do in your sleep and possibly have, and set the pans to proof on the warming shelf. The oven of a wood range has no dial and no thermometer worth trusting. It has you. You fire it up with oak, let it fall to steady, open the door, and hold your bare arm in for a slow count. That is the instrument, a woman's forearm, calibrated over 25 years. And when the heat bites at the count you want, the loaves go in. After that, you bake by nose and by ear. Bread tells you when it's done. It goes quiet in the pan, and the smell turns a corner from yeast to toast. And there is a moment known to every woman who has ever done this when the whole house lifts its head at once. You're pulling the 4th and 5th loaves when you hear steel tires on gravel and a horse blowing at your hitching rail, and you know before you look, by the smart short-coupled trot alone, that it is Mandy Troyer. Mandy is 61 years old, a widow 9 years now, and she runs her own small place up the road with the help of a nephew and a temperament that could strip paint. She raised 8 children in a kitchen smaller than yours, buried her husband in an October, and hung her wash the following Monday at 6:30 as usual. And if you want to know what this community thinks of that, it thinks everything of it, and has never once said so. She's on her way home from Berlin with a buggy full of dry goods, and a reason to stop that is nominally about borrowing your big coffee pot for Sister's Day, and is actually about Monday itself, the visiting current that runs under all this work. She comes into the wash house, reads your morning in one pass of her eyes, the load's done, the line full, the loaves cooling, and gives it the highest praise she gives anything. You're getting on then. Getting on, you say. She helps herself to the end of a warm loaf without asking, which is a privilege of 61, and stands eating it in small bites while you feed the last of the barn trousers through the wringer. She watches Sarah catch them on the other side. That one hangs a sheet better than her mother did at her age, Mandy says to the room, as if Sarah were not in it. Sarah goes red to the ears and pretends to be deaf, and stands a half-inch taller for the rest of the day. You mention, in the sideways manner in which such things are mentioned, the thin look of the line down across the hollow. Mandy chews. Her eyes go to the south window, to the scattered whites on Katie Yoder's line, and she reads the whole page of it as fast as you did. Second baby coming before the first one's walking proper, she says, and her mother 300 miles away in Indiana. A pause. I had that year once. Somebody carried me through it. You go down Thursday, take bread. That is all. It is not a suggestion, and you do not treat it as one. This is how the women of this county govern their world. No committee, no telephone chain, no charity with a name. A widow eating the heel of a loaf issues one sentence in a wash house, and by it, a tired girl across a creek has just been assigned a guardian for the season. Mandy sets down the coffee pot question, actually does borrow the coffee pot, backs her horse with 2 clicks of her tongue, and is gone. Before she turns out of the lane, she leans from the buggy and delivers, over the putt of your dying wash engine, the line she's been saying to young women since before you were 1. The work doesn't get smaller, Mary. Your hands get bigger. You've heard it 100 times. It lands like the first time. Every time. Dinner is at noon, and let me stop and set the table straight for you, because the words matter here. In this county, dinner is the noon meal, and it is the big one. Supper, at evening, is the small one. A man walking a plough behind horses from 7 to noon burns what a modern office man burns in 2 days, and the noon table is where it comes back. So while the wash house steams, you have also, with Sarah's hands and Anna's small ones, produced the following, from stores and scratch. By noon, fried chicken from Saturday's butchered hens, mashed potatoes with browned butter, milk gravy, noodles, homemade ones, dried in sheets and cut fine, canned green beans from last August, cooked with a piece of side pork, coleslaw, bread, butter, apple butter, 2 custard pies from Friday's baking, and coffee for 9 on a wash day. And when the men wash up at the porch bench and sit, and the silence falls, and Eli's head bows over all of it, no one says a word of thanks to you in particular, because the thanks is built into the order of the world here, and the proof of your work is not a compliment. The proof is empty dishes and full men, and the plain fact that this farm turned again today on its two halves. Eli, for the record, is not a silent man. Whatever the photographs the tourists take might suggest about men in black hats, at his own table he is dryly, quietly funny in Pennsylvania Dutch, the German dialect this whole county speaks at home, keeping English for school, for town, and for the likes of us. He tells the twins that the oats went in crooked this morning, and that all summer, anyone driving past will be able to see exactly where Dan sneezed. The twins find this so funny that Davy has to leave the table to recover. Levi laughs because his brothers are laughing. Lydia bangs her spoon. This, too, is what Amish women really did all day. They ran the room this happens in. 3 times a day they built the place where a family becomes a family, out of flour and grease and 40 minutes, and then they cleared it and built it again. The afternoon brings the line in. Sun-stiff sheets folded 4 hands with Sarah in a snapping, cracking rhythm that is half chore and half game. The fold and meet that mothers and daughters have done since cloth was invented. And everything that must be ironed tomorrow is sprinkled with water, rolled tight, and packed into baskets to mellow overnight. Because that is Tuesday. In this world, the week itself is a machine. Wash on Monday, iron and sew on Tuesday, bake and clean and garden the middle days, bake big on Friday, scrub everything and bathe everyone on Saturday, rest on Sunday. Your grandmother ran this same week. So does every woman at your church. The week runs you, and it carries you, both at once. And when the outside world calls it drudgery, it is telling you more about itself than about you. Drudgery is work with no meaning in it. There is not 1 hour of this day that 9 people do not depend on. At 4 o'clock, between everything else, come the hens, and the hens are not a chore. The hens are your business. 60 white leghorns in the henhouse behind the garden, and every egg they lay belongs, by a custom so old and so universal that no one can remember deciding it, not to the farm. To you. Egg money is the wife's money. So is cream money, where there is cream to spare, and garden stand money in summer. You feed, you water, you gather. 2 wire baskets, 40 some eggs today. You candle them in the cellar by lamplight, holding each egg to the light to read its inside, and you pack them in the case for the produce man who comes Thursdays and pays cash. At around 40 cents a dozen, 60 hens in good lay are worth better than $10 a month, and $10 a month in 1955 is real money. A month of $10 months buys shoes for 7 children come fall. And the money itself lives where such money has always lived, in a tin. Yours is an old cocoa tin, gone soft at the corners, standing behind the flour bin where any thief would have to be a member of the family to find it. You put in today's count and press the lid down with your thumb, and the tin makes its small talk, and inside now there is $23 and some silver, a summer of eggs and last fall's stand money, not spoken for, not asked after. Eli has never once in 15 years asked what is in the cocoa tin. It would not occur to him. That tin is the treasury of your half of the farm, and a woman's quiet power in this county can be measured exactly the way a farm's can, by what she has put by. $23 put by. For nothing. For whatever comes. Remember the tin. While you're down in the cellar with the egg case, take the lamp and look around you, because the cellar is the truest room in this house, and it is yours the way the barn is Eli's. Stone walls, dirt, cool air, the smell of earth and vinegar and apples gone slightly winey. Shelf after shelf of glass, floor to ceiling, quarts and pints, greens and reds and golds, beans, corn, tomatoes, beets, peaches, cherries, sausage and lard, apple butter, last summer's campaign standing at ease. In April, the shelves are at their lowest, maybe 140 jars left of the 800 you put up, and part of your mind, the quartermaster part that never sleeps, counts them every time you come down here and divides them by the weeks left until the garden takes over. Enough, and a little over. That is the whole aim of this room, and honestly, of this life. Enough, and a little over. Never so much over that it becomes pride. Never so little that it becomes need. Along the floor stand the crocks, heavy glazed stoneware, 5, 8, 10 gallons for a kraut and pickles and lard and apple butter. And the biggest of them, the 10-gallon with the blue mark, has a hairline crack running down from the rim, thin as a hair on a page. It went through last season without weeping a drop, and you have told yourself since October that you will pick up a replacement at an auction or in town before the heavy fall work comes, and you have not done it, because it is April and the crock is empty and there is always something ahead of it. You run your thumbnail across the line, you can just feel it, a whisper in the glaze, and you say to yourself what you always say, it will keep. Put that beside the tin in your mind's pantry. The crock with the crack. It will matter in October. And one more thing is put by in this house, one floor up. And since we are taking inventory of what a woman keeps, you may as well see it. In the bedroom stands a cedar chest, and in the cedar chest under the good winter quilts, folded with a care that borders on ceremony, lie 9 yards of navy blue cotton, bought off the bolt in Berlin in March at 49 cents a yard. $4.41, egg money, out of the tin. It is not for you. It is the cloth for the dress a girl in this community gets when she stops being a child in everyone's eyes. The first truly well-made, grown-person dress. The one she will wear into the years when the young folks begin to notice one another. Sarah does not know it is there. You're in no hurry. 14 is 14. But cloth in the chest is like money in the tin and jars on the shelf. When the day comes that wants it, and days that want things always come, it will be there, already paid for, already folded. 9 yards of navy, waiting in the dark, smelling of cedar. Remember that too. Supper is the small meal, and it is the soft hour. Fried mush again, or fried potatoes, cold sliced beef, bread, jam, mint tea from the mint bed by the wash-house door, canned peaches in a glass bowl. The lamps are lit. Your morning's 15 minutes paying out now in steady gold light, and the kitchen pulls in around the table the way a shell pulls in around what it keeps. Outside the windows the fields go blue, then grey. The English farm across the valley switches its yard light on, one hard white star on a pole, and your kitchen goes on burning its soft kerosene gold. And if you stood at the fence line between the two farms tonight, you could see, in one glance, 2 Americas, and you would have a hard time saying which one looked more like the future, and which one more like a place where you'd want to fall asleep. After supper, while Eli reads the budget aloud in stretches, who has died in Indiana, whose barn burned in Iowa, which Ohio boy is in the hospital in Worcester and would take mail, you sit down at the treadle machine in the corner of the main room, because the evening is when the mending happens, and with 7 children the mending basket refills itself the way a spring does. Tonight it is a torn knee in Amos's trousers and a hem down on Anna's school dress, and the machine sings its whir and clack under your foot, and part-way through the second seam the drive belt. The narrow leather loop that carries your foot's work up to the needle, worn shiny and thin these last months stretched with age, slips on its wheel and the needle stalls mid-stitch. You take the belt off its groove, shorten it a hole at the steel staple, set it back, and go on. Eli looks up over the paper. That belt's for replacing. It will keep, you say. He looks at you one beat longer, 15 years of marriage in that beat, and goes back to the deaths in Indiana. The belt holds, the hem gets done. But you have now said it will keep twice in one evening, about 2 different things, and the year is listening. That is the 4th thing to remember. The tin, the crock, the navy cloth in the chest, and a leather belt 1 hole shorter, whirring in lamplight. The 5th thing you already know. A thin wash line across a creek hollow, and Thursday coming. At 8:30 the day closes the way it opened, in order. The children wash feet and faces at the bench. Levi is carried up asleep before he agrees to be. You bank the stove. Coals raked, ash banked over them, draughts shut, tomorrow's fire folded away inside tonight's like a seed, and scald the sponge bowl and stand it ready on its shelf for Thursday night, because Friday the bread starts over, because bread always starts over. The family gathers, and Eli reads the evening prayer from the thick German prayer book. The old words rounded smooth as creek stones by 400 years of mouths, and the children kneel at their chairs, even the twins gone still at last, and the house says, "Men in one breath." Then the lamps go out one by one, each with its small huff and its ribbon of smoke and its smell of kerosene that means to you exactly what it has meant since you were Anna's age. Day's end, doors locked, everyone in. You're the last one up. You're always the last one up. You stand a moment in the dark kitchen. You can hear the stove ticking as it cools, the windmill creaking slow, a dog 2 farms over, the whole soft machinery of the county settling, and your back aches in the old familiar places, and your hands smell of lye soap and bread. And somewhere down the hollow a tired girl younger than you has finally gotten her baby down, and her Monday is done too, because you will help see to it that her Thursdays are coming. 50 gallons carried, 8 loaves baked, 9 people fed 3 times, 1 line published, read and taken in. This day will never appear in any record. There's never been a county in the world that kept books on days like this. Tonight, we are keeping them. Up the stairs, then. Your hands find the rail in the dark. They always do. Your hands know before your head wakes, and they know after it sleeps too. Tuesday, so you know, will be ironing. Sad irons heated in rotation on the stove, 3 of them, swapped hot for cooling in a rhythm as old as the pyramids. Every Sunday shirt and every cap pressed on a padded board through the whole warm length of the morning. And Tuesday afternoon will be sewing, and it is worth lying here on the edge of sleep and letting the true size of the sewing sink in, because of all the invisible halves of your invisible work. This is the one the outside world most completely fails to imagine. There is no clothing store in this family's life. None. Every stitch on those 9 bodies, from Eli's Sunday coat to Lydia's nightgowns, from broad-fall trousers to cape dresses to aprons to caps, to the little black bonnets to nightshirts to the quilts they all sleep under, designed, cut, sewed, fitted, let out, taken in, patched, turned, handed down, and finally worn to rags and braided into rugs by you at one black treadle machine by lamplight after supper. A boy like Amos goes through the knees of his trousers faster than you can honestly keep ahead of, and there are 4 boys in this house, stair-stepped so that every garment lives 4 lives. Amos to Dan, Dan to Davy, Davy in time to Levi. Each life beginning at your needle with new patches, moved buttons on the broad falls, a hem let down leaving its telltale pale line like a watermark on a creek bank. The dresses cascade the same way, Sarah to Anna, Anna in time to Lydia. In some houses they say a garment isn't done until it has raised the whole family. In this house nothing with thread in it retires, it is only reassigned. 60, 70 garments a year, made or remade, in the hours after the day is over. That is the sewing load. That is what the treadle and the worn belt and the lamp are for. And twice a year, when the church women gather for a sewing, a frolic you call any work turned into a gathering, a dozen of you around long tables turn out shirts and dresses by the stack for whichever family has fallen behind a new baby or a sickness. And the talk runs soft over the machines like water over stones, and a stranger looking in the window would swear it was a party. He would not be wrong. That is the trick of this whole life, the trick the outside world keeps missing. You have not divided work from company, and so you have never in your life had to sit alone and call it rest. Sleep now. The bowl stands ready. The fire is banked, folded away inside its ash like a letter in an envelope, waiting for your hand. The fire first, then the bread, then the day. 52 Mondays a year. This was one. The week rolls on the way. The week always rolls, each day with its name and its work, and on Thursday, as instructed, you go down across the hollow with 2 loaves and a crock of apple butter and a reason invented for the occasion. You need to see about borrowing back a canna rack, which is true in the way that such reasons are always technically true. Katie Yoda's kitchen tells you everything before she says a word. It is clean. A bride's kitchen is always clean. Cleanliness being the one thing a frightened young housekeeper can control. But it is clean the way a held breath is quiet. The baby, a boy just past a year, is fussing on her hip with the particular grinding fuss of a child cutting teeth, and Katie herself has the pale, translucent look around the eyes that you remember from your own 2nd year of marriage, when Sarah was new and Amos was coming, and your own mother was 2 rooms away, instead of 300 miles. Katie's people are in Indiana, in the settlements around Napanee. She writes her mother every week. A letter is not a pair of hands. You do not say any of the things an English visitor might say. You do not ask how she is feeling, which would force her to say, fine. You set the bread on the table, take the baby off her hip in the same motion, as if that were simply where your arm was going anyway, and say that your girls have gotten ahead of you on garden plants, and she would be doing you a favour to take a flat of tomato starts off your hands, and that Monday next, you and Sarah will be trading work with her on the wash. You have it in your head to try her bluing, is the story. And that Sister's Day this month is at Mandy Troyer's, and Mandy asked for her by name, which as of this morning Mandy has, because you saw to it. Katie stands in the middle of her clean kitchen with her hands suddenly empty, and for one moment the held breath lets go. Her eyes fill, and she turns to the stove and says, in Dutch, that the coffee is fresh. And that is all, and that is everything, and you drink the coffee, and by the time you walk home up the hollow, the arrangement exists, invisible and unbreakable. The girl is carried. Nobody voted. Nobody will ever mention it. In some counties of this world, help is a thing you must be desperate enough to request. In this one, it is a thing that arrives disguised as your own favour to the helper, so that it costs the helped nothing to accept, and if the English ever fully understood how that works, you sometimes think, they could close half their offices. Friday is the great baking, and Friday is the day your kitchen becomes what the tourists imagine it always is. 8 loaves again, but Friday is also pies, because Sunday's coming and Sunday cannot be cooked for on Sunday. Pie in this county is not dessert. Pie is infrastructure. 6 of them this Friday. 2 custard, 2 rhubarb from the first red stalks along the garden fence, a raisin cream, and a schnitz pie. Dried apple slices from the bag in the cellar, soaked and spiced. The winter pie of your whole people, the pie your grandmother made in this kitchen with these same tins. Your pie dough is lard and flour and cold water, and no recipe on any card. The recipe lives in your fingertips, in the exact feel of the moment the fat has been cut in far enough, pebbles not paste. You roll crusts on the floured oilcloth with a glass jar when the pin is being used by Anna, who is 6 and is rolling her own small doomed grey crust beside you. Learning, the way you learned, by ruining dough next to a woman who never once called it ruined. By 10 the kitchen is at full steam, bread out, pies in, a kettle of chicken stewing for Sunday's cold slicing, Lydia asleep in the wash basket by the window where you can see her, Anna's pie, reassembled by your hands when she wasn't looking, riding the oven's back corner. The smell in this room right now, layered crust and hot fruit and yeast and coffee, is the smell that will still be able, 60 years from now, to stop the grown Levi in his tracks in some far kitchen and close his throat with one breath of it. That is a power. No one calls it one. It is one. And then Sunday. And Sunday is the hinge of everything, so come along but quietly. Church is every other week. That is the old way, and the districts here have kept it. And it is held not in any church building, for there are none and never have been, but in the homes, each family in the district taking its turn, the benches hauled from farm to farm in a grey boxed wagon built for nothing else. This Sunday it is at the Rabers. You have been up since 4. Sunday is no day of rest for a mother, whatever it says in the catechism. 7 children washed, brushed, pinned, buttoned and hatted before 7 o'clock, the baby's basket packed, the buggy loaded like a small ship. The drive over in the cool of the morning, the roads all at once full of buggies converging from every direction like iron filings drawn to a magnet, neighbours' teams falling in ahead and behind, the horses all knowing the way, and then 3 hours on a backless bench. The men and boys on one side of the big opened rooms, the women and girls on the other, facing them. This is how it has been since Switzerland, and no one has ever felt a need to explain it. You sit with Lydia on your lap and Anna against your side in the ranks of women ordered loosely by age. Mandy somewhere behind you with the older women, Katie beside you, because you steered her there with one touch of your hand at the door. The preaching is in German, the old High German of the Bible, slow and swaying. The songs are from the Ausbund, the thick black hymn book first printed 400 years ago, words written by prisoners in a Rhine castle dungeon, sung so slowly, a single verse can take 4 minutes, that the sound stops being singing at all and becomes something more like weather, a tide of unison voices with no instrument and no harmony and no hurry, rising and falling around you. Every cap in these rooms was made by the woman under it or by her mother. Every garment on every back in this house came off a treadle machine after some family supper. You know, because your hands know, what this room cost the women in it, and the room does not know it, and that is correct. and you would have it no other way. And still, let it be said once, here, where only you can hear it. It is a thing worth knowing. Lydia sleeps. Levi leans. The twins, across the room among the men, sit like carved boys, dying inside, being formed. Afterward comes the meal, and the meal is the women's operation from end to end. The benches flipped and stacked into tables in minutes, the same tables every time, the same food every time, by design. Bread, butter, the church peanut butter that is peanut butter, whipped with marshmallow and syrup into something children dream about, apple butter, pickles, red beets, cheese, coffee, and pie. It is deliberately simple so that no hostess can outdo another and no wife need dread her turn. Even the menu here is built to keep pride out the door. You serve in shifts, ministers and older men first, and you're on your feet with a coffee pot for most of an hour. And this too is church. And here, one field over from the Raber's wash house, while the women work and the men stand talking hay and heifers along the fence, is as good a place as any to tell you briefly how all of this got here, because it did not fall from the sky onto Ohio. The name Amish comes from a man, Jacob Ammon, an Alsatian elder who in 1693 led a division among the Swiss Anabaptists, the radical wing of the Reformation, the rebaptizers, the people who said a church should be only adults who chose it, and who were burned, drowned, and broken on wheels across Europe for a century for saying so. Ammon's people held the strict line, plain dress, untrimmed beards, and shunning for the fallen. They came to Pennsylvania in the 1700s, when Penn's colony offered the one thing Europe never had, land and peace together. And in 1809, one of them, a man named Jonas Stutzman, walked into the wooded hills of what would become Holmes County, Ohio, and built the first cabin on Walnut Creek, a strange, visionary man, as it happens, who in his later years wore only white and built a great oak chair for Christ to sit in at his return. The Christ chair is remembered with a smile here. The cabin is remembered with everything else. From that one cabin came this. By this Sunday in 1955, thousands of Amish souls across these hills, church district beyond counting, the largest gathering of old order people anywhere on earth, bigger now than Lancaster itself, though Lancaster gets the photographers. 146 years from one cabin to this bench you're sitting on. Your family has been in these hills for 5 generations. The women of those generations are in the cemetery on the hill above Charm, under small identical stones, and there is not a book in any library with one of their days in it. You are living the book they never got. Hold that thought. We have a summer to get through, and the summer is where the real tonnage is. May opens, and the garden takes command, and I want to be precise about this garden, because the word garden is doing criminal amounts of work in that sentence. An English housewife in Columbus has a garden, a row of zinnias, some tomatoes, a lawn chair. What lies behind your wash house, inside its woven wire fence, is half an acre of food under military administration. Call it 90 feet by 240, which is to say larger than the footprint of most factories' shop floors. And it is yours. Eli ploughs it and works in the manure, because horses are his half. From the moment the ground is fitted, every row of it answers to you. Sweet corn in 4 plantings 2 weeks apart, so that it comes ripe in relays instead of all at once. Green beans in successions the same way. 200 tomato plants. You started them from seed in flats on the south windowsills in March, pricked out, hardened off, and now set out by hand, You and Sarah and Anna down the rows on your knees, a trowel, a bucket of manure water, press, pour, firm, next. Potatoes in ranks, peas already up, cabbages for kraut, 100 heads, beets, carrots, onions, limers, cucumbers for pickles, celery trenched deep and blanched. And mark that celery. Celery is not a snack in this county. Celery is ceremony, and the length of a family's celery rows in June has started more quiet arithmetic among church women than I have any intention of explaining yet. Squash, pumpkins, strawberries in their matted bed, grapes on the arbour, rhubarb, the orchard beyond, apples, peaches, sour cherries, a plum. Every mouthful of it will pass through your hands twice, once going into the ground, once coming out, and most of it a third time going into glass. The garden is not a hobby attached to the household. The garden is the household's mainspring, wound in May, released all winter. A poor garden in this county is not embarrassing. It is dangerous. Nobody counts this work either, but I will. Between May and frost, you will put something on the order of 500 hours into that half-acre, on your knees and off them, an hour snatched before breakfast, 2 in the cool of evening, the hoe kept leaning by the gate the way another century's soldier kept a rifle by the door, and the hoeing has company, always. This is the part the photographs never catch. Anna weeds beside you and learns which green is carrot and which is quack grass. Levi is set to squashing potato bugs into a can of kerosene, a job so gruesomely satisfying that 4-year-olds line up for it. Lydia sits on a blanket at the row end under the watch of whichever child is nearest. The talk goes up and down the rows with the hoes, school, hens, who was seen driving whom home from the singing, and the work disappears inside the talk the way it always does here. You have never in your life weeded alone. Sit with that. In the loneliest work of the modern world, the housework of one woman in one box, your people simply never unbundled the work from the people. It is the single largest fact about your day, and it is invisible, because company doesn't photograph. It is in these weeks, standing at the produce man's truck on a Thursday, that the outside world's news reaches you, the way it always reaches you, second-hand, calm, a little late, like light from a far hill. The produce man, a cheerful English fellow who has bought your eggs for 9 years, is full of it this spring. The polio vaccine, the Salk shots, announced with church bells and sirens back on the 12th of April, the whole country lit up over it, school children lining up by the million. You listen, counting egg cases, and you think of the Coblentz boy 2 districts over, in a brace since the bad summer of '52, and you say, plainly, that it is a wonderful thing, because it plainly is. Your people are not against medicine. That is a tale the tourists tell each other. When sickness comes to this house, the doctor from Millersburg comes to it, and is paid in cash, on the day, in full. No insurance, for insurance is a way of not trusting God and not trusting the church, and the church is the insurance, as you will see before this year is out. The world's news comes to you like this all summer. A vaccine in April. In September, the same fellow leaning on his tailgate telling you the president himself has had a heart attack out in Denver. Eisenhower, the general, and the stock market falling out of bed over it. And you will say, both times, the same thing your mother would have said, my, and then, well, and then you will go back to counting eggs, not because you are simple, but because you have subtracted yourself from that whole roaring machine on purpose, and the subtraction is the oldest vow your people ever made. June brings strawberries, and strawberries open the canning year the way the first robin opens spring, gently, deceitfully, with no hint of what is coming. A few mornings picking, bent double in the dewy bed, fingers stained to the second knuckle, jam boiled in the big kettle, the skimmed pink foam awarded to children on bread, 20-some quarts and jars put down almost casually. Then cherries, you and Sarah up ladders in the sour cherry trees with buckets wired to the branches, then peas, then the first beans. These cellar shelves begin, jar by jar, to fill back up, like a tide coming in one glass at a time. And with June, the stand opens. A plank counter on 2 sawhorses under the maple where the lane meets the road, a scale, a cigar box for change, and a painted board, eggs, berries, vegetables. The stand is yours the way the hens are yours. Its money goes into the cocoa tin, and its logic goes deeper than money. Sarah and Anna run it through the slow hours, and running it is their schooling in the other family trade. Dealing squarely with the English, weighing honest, counting change out loud, saying no politely to the ones who want to haggle as if a quart of strawberries were a rug in a bazaar. The car traffic on these roads is thicker every summer now, and not all of it is going somewhere. Some of it is coming here to look at you. The tourists have discovered Lancaster in a big way these last years, and the spillover is finding Holmes County. Sedans idling slow past the stand, a camera resting on a rolled-down window, aimed. You have learned the look of an aimed camera the way a groundhog learns a hawk. Your people do not pose for photographs. The old commandment against graven images sits behind that, and something else too, older and plainer. A person is not scenery. So when the camera swings, you turn, without hurry, without anger, the way you'd turn from a cold draught and give it the back of your cap and go on twisting the top of a paper sack of beans, and the sack's neat paper thunder says everything you have no intention of saying aloud. One woman in a flowered dress, sometime in that first hot week, picks over the tomatoes at the stand and asks Sarah, in the loud, kind voice people use for the foreign, whether she doesn't get terribly bored out here, poor thing, with no television. No, Sarah, 14, remember, on her feet since 5, having that morning helped milk 11 cows, hung a family's wash and picked 40 quarts of cherries, considers the question with genuine puzzlement, and answers honestly that she doesn't believe she's ever once been bored in her life. And can she get the lady anything besides the tomatoes? The woman drives off charmed, having understood nothing. You hear the story at supper and laugh until you have to sit down, and Eli makes Sarah tell it twice. But mark the exchange, because the whole misunderstanding of your life is folded up inside it, neat as thread. The world in the sedan believes your days are empty, because it cannot see what fills them. It thinks work that doesn't earn a wage is idleness with extra steps. It will take that world another 2 generations to begin paying money. Serious money, magazine money, therapy money, in pursuit of the very things stacked invisibly all over this farm. Bread from a live culture, vegetables out of dirt, you know, clothes made to the body wearing them, children raised inside the work of the family, hands that know things, days with a shape, sleep that comes when the light goes. Every one of those things is standing right here at this plank stand, wearing an apron, weighing beans. July comes in hot, and July is where this year stops strolling and starts to march. Because in July the wheat and oats come ripe all across these hills at once, and that means threshing. And threshing, for the women of this county, means the biggest cooking operation of the ordinary year, the harvest dinner. And it is barreling toward your kitchen right now, with 16 men behind it. Here is how it works, and it is one of the prettiest pieces of social machinery your people ever built. No family owns a threshing machine. A machine that costs that much and works 2 weeks a year would be foolishness. So the farms run in rings. 8, 10 farms banded together, sharing one machine among them, and when the grain is ready, the whole ring moves from farm to farm in turn, every man and team together, and does each place's threshing in a day or two. The machine itself is a great galvanized dinosaur, fed sheaves at one end, blowing straw out its long crooked neck into a golden mountain at the other, and it runs off a long flapping belt from an engine. And yes, an engine. Your district, like most here, draws its line not at engines, but at what engines are for. Power for the belt being an old allowance. Power for the road being another matter entirely. In the strictest districts, even this differs. By now that sentence should feel like furniture. What the ring means for the men is shared iron and shared sweat. What it means for the women is this. On the day the ring comes to your farm, you feed it. All of it. 16 men, your own, the neighbours, the 2 English hands the robbers hire, plus the boys carrying water, plus your own children, plus the women who come to help you cook. Dinner at noon for close to 30 in July, off a wood-burning cook stove, with the thermometer on the porch standing at 91 degrees, and it cannot be a make-do meal. A threshing dinner is judged, not allowed, never allowed, but as surely as livestock is judged at the Mount Hope sale. And the judgment attaches to the farm itself, to its whole standing as a going concern. Men in this county will speak of a farm's threshing dinner 20 years after the farm has changed hands. Your grandmother's chicken and nep got mentioned at her funeral. That is not a joke. It was mentioned admiringly. And a threshing dinner is only the drill for the greater feat. When a barn burns somewhere in the district and the county raises a new one in a single day, it is this same kitchen army, doubled and tripled, that lays the tables that feed 40 men off the beams at noon. The raising belongs to the men and to another night's story, but the tables have always belonged to the women. The day before, the kitchen goes onto a war footing. Bandy Troyer arrives mid-morning, unasked, with her apron already on, hangs her bonnet on the 3rd hook, which has been her hook in this kitchen since your mother ruled it, and takes over the pies without discussion. 8 of them, 4 cherry, 4 custard, because Thresherman's custom entitles every man to a quarter pie, and only a fool plans tighter than that. Katie Yoder comes up the hollow after her own noon work, carrying into her 5th month now and forbidden by every woman present from lifting anything heavier than a paring knife, and is set on a chair with 2 buckets and 40 pounds of potatoes, and peels them into ribbons, and is fed and talked over and kept in the middle of things, which is precisely the point of seating her there. Sarah is given the noodles and the sweeping, and a running commentary from Mandy on both. You kill and dress 10 chickens in the morning. That work is yours, done at the block behind the hen house with a speed and an economy of motion you would prefer the sedans on the road not to witness. 10 birds scalded, plucked, drawn, and cut up inside 2 hours, because your hands have done it 1,000 times, and your mind, meanwhile, is 3 moves ahead on the gravy. Threshing morning comes up golden and stifling. The teams begin turning into the lane at 7, wagons rumbling, men calling. The machine is set level in the barnyard, the belt laced, and at 7:30 the engine takes up its deep, stationary heartbeat, and the whole farm starts to shake gently, all day, like a ship under way. Dust hangs over the barnyard in a bronze cloud. The straw stack rises like a slow miracle. And in the house, 4 women and 3 girls are moving at a pace no factory floor ever matched. Because noon is coming, and noon does not wait. The last hour before a threshing dinner is the closest thing your life has to combat. Every burner and both ovens of the range are engaged, the summer kitchen stove besides, the second stove, out in the wash house, that keeps the worst of the fire's heat out of the house in July, an arrangement your people keep precisely because a cook stove in August is a serious enemy. Chicken frying in 3 iron skillets, turned with a fork in each hand. 20 pounds of potatoes mashed in relays with a masher the size of a fence post. Gravy in a stock pot. Noodles. Beans with side pork. Coleslaw cold from the cellar. Applesauce. Pickles. Red beets. Bread. Butter. Apple butter. Coffee in the borrowed 30-cup pot. The pies standing in ranks on the porch table like an honour guard. The long tables, planks and sawhorses again, the same planks that are a produce stand in June and will be a wedding table in November, set out under the maples, because no room in the house holds 30. The heat is a fact you simply stop negotiating with. Your dress is wet through between the shoulders by 10. The baby is parked with Anna in the coolest corner of the porch. Mandy, at 70 pies into her season, works with the terrifying serenity of an old gunner. At 11:30 the pitch of the machine changes, dies, and the sudden silence rings like a bell. And here they come, 16 men walking out of the bronze dust, black with chaff to the eyebrows, shirts soaked, washing in relays at the bench where you have set out clean towels, soap, and 2 boilers of warm water. And then the tables. Grace. Silent. 30 heads bowed under the maples, the only sound the leaves and 1 ambitious rooster. Then the eating, and Amish threshers eat the way a hayfire burns, fast, total, and without conversation for the first 10 minutes. You and the women do not sit. You circle, refilling, replacing, reloading. More chicken here, gravy there, the second wave of potatoes. Coffee, coffee, coffee. A hand raises an empty bowl without looking up, and it is full again before it settles back to the cloth, and the trick of it, the actual practice trick of it, is that no man at that table could tell you afterward how any of it happened. That is the standard. Service so smooth it becomes weather. At the far end, old grandfather Rabber, the ring's elder statesman, 78 years old and still forking sheaves at the machine's mouth an hour at a stretch, sits back at last, surveys the wreckage of the third best dinner of his July. He threshes at 10 farms. The man is a walking championship table, looks down the boards at the pie coming and pronounces in Dutch, to nobody and to the whole county at once, that a man could do worse than die at this table. Around him 16 men, who would sooner be photographed than compliment a woman's cooking to her face, make a low general sound of assent into their coffee. You are at the porch door with a cherry pie in each hand when it lands. That sound is your paycheck. This county pays its women in murmurs, and every woman in this yard can hear a murmur at 40 rods. They're back at the machine by 1. By 2 the dishes are done. 4 women, 2 dishpans, an assembly line that would shame Detroit. By 4 the straw stack stands finished, gleaming, and the wagons rattle out of the lane toward the next farm in the ring, where tomorrow another kitchen does what yours did today, and you will be there at mid-morning with your apron on and your bonnet on the hook, because the dinner, like the machine, belongs to the ring. Nobody keeps books on any of this. Who cooked, who peeled, who came, who couldn't. And everybody keeps books on all of it. The soft, eternal double entry of a place where the only wealth that signifies is what you can be counted on for. That evening, milking done. Supper, a scraped-together affair of leftovers that everyone is too tired to notice. You sit on the porch step for 10 whole minutes doing absolutely nothing, which for you is roughly a sabbatical, and watch the fireflies stitch the dark over the stubble. Your feet are two aching strangers, king. Your hands smell of dish soap and chicken and coffee. In the cool of the barnyard, the new straw stack breathes out its warm gold smell, and up the road you can hear, faint, the Raber's windmill and a whippoorwill getting down to business. 16 men fed, 30 souls counting the yard. It will happen twice more this month around the ring, and the wheat is in, and the flour in your barrel next winter will have been standing in that field this morning. Enough, and a little over. You could sleep sitting up. You nearly do. But August is standing just past the fence row, and August, in the ledger of an Amish farmwife, is not a month. August is the campaign. Understand the arithmetic first, because the arithmetic is the general giving the orders. 9 people must eat for roughly 26 weeks, in which this garden produces nothing but memories. Call it November through April. The cellar is the bridge across those weeks, and the bridge is built out of glass, and it is built now in the 8 or 9 hot weeks, when the garden goes from producing enough to producing far, far too much, on purpose, by your own planting hand. The target this year, same as every year, is the family benchmark, 800 quarts, give or take. And when I say 800, I need you to understand what that means in a kitchen without electricity. This isn't a hobby shelf of pretty preserves. This is 2 full quarts of home-canned food pulled up those cellar stairs every single day for half a year. 200 quarts of tomatoes and juice, 150 of green beans, 100 of corn, peaches, 80, pickles in their crocks and jars, 60, beets, applesauce, cherries, grape juice, jams, relishes, meat when butchering comes. Sauerkraut shredded into the big crocks by the hundredweight. It is the harvest of that half-acre plus 2 orchard rows plus a peach truck from town, moved through this kitchen jar by jar, over fire in August by hand. And every quart is a small industrial process with no margin for error. The jars boiled, the rubbers new. You buy jar rubbers by the gross, they cost little, and a failed seal costs a jar of food. And thrift that spoils food is not thrift. It is waste wearing thrift's bonnet, one of your mother's sayings, deployed annually. The beans snapped on the porch by every pair of hands in the family old enough to be trusted. Evenings, the pans going tick, tick, tick like slow rain, while Eli reads the budget aloud and the twins race snap for snap. The packing, the salting, the lid screwed down over new rubbers, and then the processing. Your district's women mostly cold pack in the big blue-speckled canners and the copper wash boiler, jars standing shoulder to shoulder in racks, water at a rolling boil over a full wood fire, 3 hours for beans and corn, and the stove roaring like January in a kitchen where the thermometer is telling you things you would rather not know. Some of the younger women, and you among them these last 2 summers, have taken up the pressure canner besides. The heavy aluminum kettle with its dial and its jiggling weight, faster and safer for the low-acid things, science's one great gift to the canning woman. Though you know districts, and you know women, where the pressure canner is looked at sideways as one more newfangled thing, and the boiler does what the boiler has always done, same county, same beans. You know the sentence by now. Through the middle of August, the kitchen and wash house run like a 2-boiler ship. You're up at 4 to can in the morning cool. The day's ordinary freight, meals, milking, wash, hens, stand, goes on around the canning the way traffic goes on around roadwork, and the evening session runs past dark, lamplight on steam, Sarah lifting jars from the rack with the wooden-handled tongs, her forearms getting the small pink scald speckles that are the August badge of every woman in this county. The sound of the season, the sound you will hear in your sleep until October, is the ping, the small bright metallic note a cooling jar makes as its lid snaps down into its seal, the sound of 1/4 of February being locked shut. On a good night the pantry pings like a toy orchestra, irregular, silvery, each note a sealed jar, and you count them half-consciously the way a shepherd counts bells. Row by row the cellar refills. You keep the tally in soft pencil on the back page of the little notebook that lives in the knife drawer. 212 by the 10th of August, 340 by the 20th, the columns creeping toward 800 like a barometer of winter safety. And if you want to know what an Amish farmwife's version of a bank book looks like, that is it. Exactly. It is in that same August, the third week of it, that the budget comes heavy with the floods. 2 hurricanes back to back have wrung themselves out over the east. Connie, then Diane, the rivers of eastern Pennsylvania up and over everything. Whole towns to the rafters, the papers calling Diane the costliest storm the country has ever had. The scribe's letters from the Pennsylvania settlements read like Job with a dateline. Water in the first-floor bedrooms, hay gone black in the fields, an aunt of Eli's writing that they cooked for 2 weeks for English neighbours who had lost their kitchens entire. Around the supper table Eli reads it out slow, and the children are quiet, and you find yourself doing the thing every woman in this county does with a catastrophe, converting it instantly into logistics. How many jars would ride out water in a cellar? Where the quilts would go? How fast this kitchen could turn out bread for 40, if bread for 40 were suddenly the need. And the answer, which you know to the loaf because of July, is part of why disasters land differently here. Your people will send men and money east before the month is out. The plain churches pass the hat for flooded strangers as naturally as breathing. Insurance being, as I said, a thing you are instead of a thing you buy. September steadies. The mornings get a knife edge on them. The school bell starts up the road. Anna to the first reader, the twins to the third, marching off down the gravel with dinner buckets, while the English children ride past them in a long yellow bus toward the big consolidated school in town. 2 educations passing each other every morning at the same fence row, waving. And there is talk again this fall. There is talk every fall now, about the state wanting all the one-room schools closed and every child bussed and graded and kept to 16, and about what the plain churches will do if it comes to that. It has not come to that. Not this year. Not in this township. The men discuss it at the cheese house in the level voices they'd use for a weatherfront 2 counties off. You listen and fold it away with the other far thunder. And then, mid-September, in the space of 8 days, this story's quiet year turns and shows its teeth. Twice. The first time is a Tuesday. You're at the stand end of the garden pulling onions when the sound reaches you. Not a cry exactly. The particular flat smack of a shout with fear in it from the barn. And you're moving before your mind has voted which is the oldest reflex motherhood installs. It is Davy. The twins were sent to stack the empty chicken crates in the barn alley. Davy, being 8, was walking the top plank of the grain room partition, being, he will later explain with perfect sincerity, a rooster. And there is a gash across his left palm and heel of the hand, long and deep and dirt-edged, from the hinge strap he caught on the way down, and there is a great deal of blood, and Dan is white as a cap, and Davy himself is mostly outraged at the injustice of gravity. You have his hand wrapped tight in your apron before he finishes his second howl, pressure on it, his arm up. You send Dan at a dead run for Eli in the corn, and you do the triage every farm mother learns whether she asks to or not. You have sewed up more than one animal on this place, and more than one man's lesser cuts, and you know clean to the tendon when you see it. And this is a doctor's cut, no argument. The hand of an 8-year-old being a thing you do not gamble a lifetime's use of against a $3 call. So it is the buggy, the fast mare, Eli driving, and you in the back with Davy's hand pinned high, and your apron going through red to rust, 7 miles to Millersburg at a road trot, and the doctor's needle and 11 stitches and a tetanus shot. Davy gone glassy quiet now against your side, and the bill paid on the spot, in cash, $4 even with the shot, and the cash is the cocoa tins, fetched into your purse on the way out the door between one heartbeat and the next, because that is what the tin is. The egg money is the household's blood bank. No discussion, no ledger, no asking Eli at the field for the milk check that isn't due till month's end. The wife's put-by money bridges the family across every small emergency of the year. Shoes and school tablets and doctor's stitches, and if you want to know what a woman's quiet power actually looked like in 1955, it looked like this. A mother counting 4 $1 bills onto a doctor's desk, without her husband present, and without a second's hesitation, out of money no one gave her. Davy rides home with his hands swaddled to the size of a muskmelon, deeply impressed with himself, already negotiating for the stitches to be shown at school. That night after prayer, Eli sits a long moment with his thumb moving over the boy's bandage, and says to you across the lamp, in Dutch quietly, that the hens laid well this year. Which is, from Eli, a speech. The second turn comes on the Thursday of the following week, and it comes, as the biggest things here always do, in a buggy, at a walk, wearing a bonnet. It is your sister's Emma. Your sister married into the Schlabach family over toward Walnut Creek, and Emma is her oldest, 20 years old, your goddaughter in the informal way your people have of assigning such things. A girl you have flowered and scolded and loved in this very kitchen since she could walk. You know the moment you see the mare turn in, mid-afternoon, mid-week, Emma alone, that this is not a visit. She sits at your table and turns her coffee cup a quarter turn, twice, and tells you what by rights no one outside 2 families and a bishop is supposed to know yet, that she and Mose Yoder, Katie's husband's cousin, the quiet one with the good hands, who's been driving her home from the singings for 2 years, will be published in church come October, married in November at her parents' place. And then she says the thing she came the whole way to say. She would like you to be head cook, and you set down your own cup, and for a moment, one moment, in the middle of the greatest labour year of this story, with 800 jars half done and butchering ahead and the whole engine of autumn bearing down, the kitchen goes as still as church, because you know exactly what has just been asked of you, and so, by the end of this night will you. An Amish wedding in this county is the largest social event your world produces. 200 guests and more, sometimes 3, fed a full dinner and a full supper in a single day, in a farmhouse in November, with no caterer, no rented hall, no hired anything. The whole colossal thing is run by appointed labour. Cooks, table waiters, hostlers for the horses, every post filled by relatives and neighbours named in advance, and every post an honour calibrated as finely as any court appointment in Europe ever was. And at the top of the kitchen, over the whole feeding of that multitude, stands the head cook, always a married woman, always close kin or as good as. It is the largest command a woman in this community is ever publicly given, and it is given precisely the way Emma has just given it to you. Quietly, at a kitchen table, by a girl turning a coffee cup. You say what your mother said when it was asked of her. You say you expect the two of you can manage it if Emma's mother can spare the celery. Emma laughs, the held-breath laugh of a bride who has just gotten the hardest asking of her list done. And there, I promised I would explain the celery, and now the celery explains itself. Those long-trenched rows in every full garden are the tell, because celery is wedding food here, essential to it. And a family with a marriageable daughter and a suspiciously long celery planting in June has announced a November wedding to every woman in the district without one word being spoken. Your own rows this year ran long. Your sister asked you to plant extra in April, and you did, and said nothing to anyone, and every woman at the July threshing who walked past your garden gate on the way to the privy counted those rows and drew her conclusions and said nothing to anyone either, and that friends is how news travels in a county with no telephones, through vegetables. But November is November, and October comes first, and October is apple butter, and apple butter is where one of this year's small pinned threads pulls loose at last. Apple Butter Day is an institution just below threshing in the annual order. A full day, outdoors, around the great copper kettle slung over a wood fire in the yard. The day before, a mountain of apples, 20 bushels of them, seconds and windfalls and the sound fruit of your own trees, is peeled and snitzed by a porchful of women and children, an evening frolic of its own, peelings flying in long ribbons, the peeler cranked till it smokes. Then the boiling cider first, reduced by half, then the snitz in by the bucket, and from that point the kettle must be stirred without 1 minute's ceasing for the better part of 8 hours, stirred with a long-handled wooden paddle, pierced like an oar for a slow river, worked in a figure 8 by relays of every arm on the place, because apple butter that sticks for 30 seconds is apple butter with scorch through all 15 gallons of it. The fire is kept low and even. The kettle goes from cider thin to a blooping volcanic spice-brown depth that spits like a tar pit, cinnamon and clove going in near the end. The smell rolling out over the farm so dense and so good that the school children coming home walk up the lane with their heads tipped back like hounds. And at the end of that long good day, with the light going amber and the kettle's produce cooling in crocks and jars on the porch table, 15 gallons, a year of bread's companion, you carry the last of it down the cellar stairs in the big 10-gallon crock with the blue mark, the one whose hairline you thumbed in April, the one you said would keep, and as you set it down on the cellar floor, gently, with both hands, the crock speaks, a single soft note like a knuckle on a door deep in the glaze, and the hairline is a hairline no more. It is a dark seam wandering rim to base, weeping one slow bead of brown at its middle, and the crock that served this cellar for 30 years is done, finished, in the very hour of the year it was most needed, with 60 pounds of hot apple butter in its belly, and kraut season not yet begun. You do not say anything you would repent of. You are, however, given the opportunity. You bail the apple butter into every spare vessel the cellar owns, and you stand there in the lamplight doing the quartermaster arithmetic. Kraut needs the 10-gallon. The pickles are holding the 8. The auction at Mount Hope is Wednesday, but Wednesday is silo filling, and no crock bought at auction ever came home the same week you needed it. And the answer arrives, as answers do here, the next evening on a wagon. Katie Yoder's husband turns in the lane with something riding beside him, wrapped in a horse blanket like a passenger, and hands down, sheepish at the errand, his wife's own 10-gallon crock, scalded, sweet, and empty. Katie sent word by the schoolchildren, the county's other telegraph, having heard about your crock from Anna by way of the schoolyard by way of supper, roughly 9 hours after it happened. She's far along now and keeping close to her own kitchen these days, and this is her hand reaching up the hollow anyway. The girl who was carried in April carrying back in October. Her husband says, translating his wife with visible care, that she says she'll have no use for it before spring, and that she says you would say the same to her, and that she says you did in fact say approximately that to her in April, over a flat of tomato starts. You send him home with 2 quarts of apple butter and a chicken, which is not payment. Payment would be an insult, but is the other thing. The thing there is no English word for. The thing this whole county runs on instead of money. The crock takes its place on your cellar floor. The kraut goes down on schedule. And the ledger that nobody keeps and everybody keeps has turned another of its soft pages. Silo filling week caps the month. The ring reassembling one last time to chop the standing corn and blow it up the silver pipe into the silos. A smaller, rougher echo of threshing. One more big dinner, your third of the season, executed now with the bored competence of a veteran crew. And it is on the last afternoon of it that this story climbs its hill, because dinner is at your farm and the men are cutting the far hill field, the high one, and rather than have 16 men walk 20 minutes down and 20 back, the meal goes to them, hampers, jugs of switchel and coffee, the wagon, and you and Anna riding up with it to serve. And so, at 1 o'clock on a blue October day, you find yourself standing at the top of the highest field this farm owns, the wind pulling at your cap strings, waiting while 16 men eat sandwiches and pie in the lee of the wagon, with the whole of your world laid out below you at one look. You do not get this view, that is worth saying. The men plough this hill. The women see it at silo filling and blackberry time and hardly otherwise. And every woman who stands here does what you do now, which is go quiet. Below you, the farms of the district lie side by side down the valley and there is no honest way around this figure, because it is simply what they look like quilt blocks. The dark ploughed squares, the blonde stubble, the green of the late pasture, the woodlots going rust and gold, stitched at every seam by fence rows, knotted at each corner with a white house, a red or white barn, a windmill, a garden plot, a line of wash. You can see 9 farms from here. You can name every family, every wife. You know whose mother taught whom to make rivel soup, which kitchens are carrying which sorrows this fall, whose line went up late all summer and why. There is Mandy's small tidy place with its short line. There's the rubber's long one. There, in the crease of the creek, the Yoder's, smoke standing straight up from the kitchen where Katie is waiting out her month. There is your own house, wash house, hen house, barn, garden gone to its October bones. This standboard's leaned against the maple for winter. The entire visible kingdom of your entire invisible life, from 300 feet up and half a mile off, small enough to cover with one spread hand. 146 years ago this valley was black woods, and one strange, hopeful man was raising one cabin down there on Walnut Creek. 5 generations of women got up in the cold dark between then and this noon, in that valley, and lit fires nobody recorded, and baked bread nobody counted, and the sum of all those uncounted mornings is the actual thing you're looking at. A valley that feeds itself, clothed and coherent and humming, one of the great quiet successes of the American continent, and not one of its makers ever saw her name in so much as a county paper. From up here you can finally see the whole of the work. It looks like the quilts it taught. It looks like enough and a little over. Anna stands beside you, 6 years old, hands full of empty coffee cups, and follows your eyes down the valley and says, in the tone of a person confirming a suspicion, that she can see our wash line from here. Yes, you tell her, that's ours. And you stand there 1 minute more, the two of you, before the hampers want packing. Because the head cook of a November wedding has a kitchen waiting, and the biggest fortnight of this whole recorded year is now 11 days away. The publishing comes first. The deacon rising at the end of a church Sunday to announce, in the old form, that Emma and her Mose intend to marry, the couple themselves absent from the room by custom, the news landing on 200 people who've known it since June by celery, and have the grace to receive it like lightning from a clear sky. From the moment of publishing, the machine engages. Emma's mother's kitchen becomes a headquarters. Lists are made in soft pencil on the backs of feed calendars. Who cooks, who waits tables, who tends horses, who is invited, and everyone is invited, that is nearly literal, the district and the kin from 3 states. And under all of it, the quiet tonnage. Dinner and supper for 240 people in a farmhouse on a Thursday. Thursday, because weddings here are held on Thursdays mostly, and in November nearly always. And if you have been listening all year, you already know why, and it is not romance. November is when this world can afford one. Harvest in, butchering not started, the summer's canning standing ready in every cellar the wedding will draw from, the roads still passable, the celery banked. Even love in this county is scheduled by the garden. For you, the 11 days before are a campaign inside a campaign, because your own house must arrive at that wedding dressed, and this is where the cedar chest opens at last. You bring the 9 yards of navy up into the lamplight on a Tuesday evening, and Sarah, who is drying dishes, stops with the towel in her hand and understands the whole sentence at one look, because girls here read cloth the way we read headlines. Her first grown-up dress, for the wedding. You measure her. She is suddenly, alarmingly, nearly your own height, and you cut the cape and skirt full, with a hem to let down twice, because this dress must serve for years of Sundays and in time for the singings, the Sunday evening gatherings where the young folks pair off, which at 14 stand just close enough on her horizon to make the fabric shine. And you sew, the two of you, 3 evenings running, Sarah doing the long straight seams now. Her machine work has come on all year. Mandy was right about her hands. You doing the setting of sleeves and the pleating, the treadle rocking under first one pair of feet and then the other. And on the 3rd evening at 9 o'clock in the last seam of the skirt, the drive belt, 1 hole shorter since April, polished thin as a bootlace, worn about twice and twice deferred, snaps, softly, almost politely. The needle dies mid-stitch with the skirt seam 8 inches short of done, the wedding 8 days off, and the nearest replacement belt hanging on a hardware hook in Berlin, a town that is, at 9 o'clock at night, by horse, in November, as far away as the moon. You sit for a moment looking at the dead machine and you say aloud, to the lamp, to the year, to the whole doctrine of it will keep, the single most self-incriminating sentence in the Pennsylvania Dutch language, which is, my mother said this would happen. It is Sarah who solves it, and she solves it the Holmes County way. She's out the door with a lantern before you finish rethreading, down the dark road the half-mile to Mandy Troyer's, and back inside 40 minutes with Mandy's spare belt in her coat pocket, and Mandy's message delivered verbatim with evident relish, that a woman who will not spend 85 cents on a belt in April should count on spending an evening's pride in November, and that she wants it back. The belt, not the pride. The spare is fitted by 10. The skirt seam is closed by half past. And when the dress is pressed and hung at last on the back of the bedroom door, navy and grave and waiting, Sarah stands looking at it a long minute in the lamplight, and you stand looking at Sarah, and neither of you says one word, there being, for once in this talkative story, nothing that needs carrying. The day before the wedding, the Schlabach farm absorbs its army. The bench wagon arrives, and its benches, which were church 3 Sundays ago, become wedding seating. The same planks that were your produce stand in June, and your threshing table in July are trestled into serving tables in the machine shed, which has been emptied, swept, and whitewashed into a dining hall. Wagon after wagon delivers borrowed dishware, wash boilers, roasters, coffee pots. 240 settings do not live in any one house, so they live in all of them, and every kitchen in the district has sent its plates, each wife's marked on the bottom with their initials in nail polish or paint, the county's one concession to bookkeeping. 40 chickens meet their obligations. The cellar fills with pies. I promised you one line about the food, and here it is, the whole of it. It is roast chicken with stuffing and everything that custom has seated beside it for 200 years, and the sibling to this story can lay that table dish by dish. Tonight is not about the menu. Tonight is about the machine that serves it. Because here is what you actually command, head cook of this wedding. Risen at 3:30 on the wedding morning in Emma's mother's kitchen with your sleeves pinned back. 11 married couples cooking under you. Couples' husbands too. The men turn spit and carry crew for the day, hauling wood and water and roasters, this being the one day of the Amish year when men work a kitchen and take orders in it, and take them from you. 2 stoves, both roaring, the shed tables to be set twice over. The company sits down in shifts, dinner around noon after the 3-hour service, the young folks' table at supper, which means 240 settings, washed, dried, and relayed in the gap between by relays of women at wash boilers, an operation with the tempo of a fire brigade. The timing is the art. The service is in the house, the kitchen is across the yard, and the whole feast must arrive at readiness at the exact unknowable moment the last hymn ends. So you time it, all morning, by ear, by the swell of 200 voices carrying across the yard, the slow Auspund verses your own body has kept time to since before memory, and you read the service the way a riverman reads water. That is the second sermon ending. That is the tale of Tobias. Sing, now they are kneeling, now ladle, now carve, go. And at noon the doors open and 240 people cross the yard in a slow black and white river, and the bride, Emma, your flowered goddaughter, luminous in the blue dress she sewed herself, blue being simply what brides here wear, her white cape and apron pinned with a precision her mother and you will both pretend not to have checked, takes her seat with Mose in the corner place of honour, the egg, and the food goes out of your kitchen in waves on schedule, without one visible seam, borne by table waiters in pairs, and no one applauds and no one toasts and no one photographs anything, ever. And from the kitchen doorway, with a roaster in your hands and your heart going like a ringer engine, you watch a 240-person feast land in perfect order in a whitewashed machine shed, and you permit yourself privately, before the gravy wants you, the one grace note this county's code allows its working women at the summit of their art. You check the tables once, head to foot like a line of wash, and you find it hung right. They sing through the afternoon. The young folks pair off for supper by lantern light, an arithmetic of its own that half the shed is quietly computing. Sarah in her navy sits with the other almost grown girls, watching how it is done, 4 years early and taking notes with every cell in her body. The last dishes are done by 10, sorted by painted initials into the right wagons for the right kitchens. And driving home in the cold, Lydia asleep against you, the twins asleep against each other, Anna reciting the day to Levi in a whisper, until she too runs down like a clock, Eli says, over the clop and ring of the mare in the dark, that he minds the day you cooked at your own sister's wedding, 16 years back, when he was a table waiter with no prospects and a borrowed horse, and hadn't the nerve to look at you over the celery, 15 years married, and the man can still put a whole courtship in one sentence, and leave you nothing to say back but the mare's own hoofbeats. That is the crest of this year. Not a fire, not a flood, not a hanging. This channel has given you those in other centuries and will again. But a shed full of fed people and a dress hung right, and a tired woman riding home dark roads with her family asleep against her like grain in a wagon bed. The year has nothing higher. From here, the whole country of this story slopes gently down toward winter, toward the lamp, toward the quilting frame, toward sleep, and you have more than earned the going down. Butchering comes with the first hard cold early December, when the air itself becomes the icebox this farm does not own. 2 hogs and a fat steer this year, done ring style like everything else. 2 neighbour families in with you, the same crew trading days farm to farm. And whatever you may imagine about butchering day, set it aside. Because from the women's side of the yard it is not gore, it is production, and it is one of the great cooking feats of the calendar. The men's side owns the killing and scalding and the heavy work at the gambrels, out by the barn in the frosty dark before sun-up. The women's side, the washhouse and kitchen, both stoves going, every kettle on the place drafted, owns everything after, which is to say, owns the actual point of the day, turning 2 hogs and a steer into a winter, lard rendered in the big iron kettles, snowy and sweet, poured into the crocks, Katie's 10-gallon among them, earning its lodging. Cracklings drained on flour sacks and fought over by children, sausage ground and seasoned by handfuls of sage and pepper, measured in your palm to your mother's calibration, stuffed into casings, fried down and packed in jars under lard for the shelf. Hams and bacons readied for Eli's smokehouse fire, and the whole thrifty theology of the thing, liver and heart and bones to head cheese and ponhouse, cornmeal and broth and minced pork boiled to a pudding, chilled in bread pans, the winter's breakfast standing in the cellar like ingots, because on this farm an animal is honoured the old way by wasting none of it. By dark the cellar has taken on its full winter posture, meat above, potatoes and apples binned below, kraut working in its crock, 840 jars. You counted, the notebook says so, the campaign came in over target, standing shoulder to shoulder in the lamplight. You stand at the foot of the stairs that evening longer than you strictly need to. Nobody counts this work. But once a year, on butchering night, the woman who did it gets to stand in the one room where the whole year is visible at once and count it herself. Enough and a little over. Winter can come now. It does. And winter, which the outside world assumes must be this life's hardship season, is, you would say it carefully, because contentment spoken too loud is a kind of boasting. The payment. The fields sleep. The mornings still start at 4:30. The stove still eats its wood. 11 cows still want milking in the steaming dark, but the great outdoor engine of the farm has stopped, and the day contracts to the warm centre of the house, and into the space that opens up moves the work you actually love. The mending, yes, eternal. The winter sewing, the next year's shirts and dresses moving through the treadle. New belt on it now, the old one hanging retired on a nail where you will see it, which is Mandy's kind of sermon. But chiefly in the parlour, taking up the whole south end of the room from Christmas to March, there stands the frame. The quilting frame is the parlour's winter fixture, the way the stove is the kitchen's. 4 long rails on trestles and stretched in it, layered, pieced top, wool bat backing, the quilt. This winter's is for Sarah's chest. The start of her own store against her own someday household. A lone star, pieced by you and by her, through the years' odd evenings out of the family's own worn-out clothing cut to diamonds. Her outgrown school dresses in it, Eli's old Sunday shirt, a piece of the twins' baby gowns, your mother's brown apron, the family's actual history diced fine and set in order, radiating from the centre like something exploding very slowly and very beautifully. Quilting proper, the fine stitching that binds the 3 layers, running in feathers and wreaths and crosshatch across the whole field, is handwork, needle and thimble, 7 stitches to the inch and no rider on that standard. And it is the one art form your Ordnung has ever fully licensed. A plain people, forbidden pictures, forbidden instruments, forbidden ornament on house and dress alike, poured 4 centuries of pent-up genius through the eye of this one needle, and the English museums, 60 years from now, will hang these quilts on white walls like paintings and marvel, and be right, and never quite work out that what they are looking at is the compressed fire of 10,000 winters of women who were allowed exactly this and made it everything. And a frame, like a wash line, is never worked alone. Sister's Day convenes around it every few weeks all winter, Mandy presiding at the corner she has quilted from since your Mother's Day, your sister over from Walnut Creek, Emma now in the young wives' chairs with her new married glow and her new name, 6 or 8 women stitching down opposite rails while the talk runs its soft eternal rounds, and the children conduct their sub-society under the frame itself, a warm cave floored with scraps, where Anna and her cousins keep house among the ankles. Work as society, society as work, the two never divided. A stranger at the window again would call it a party. It is a factory and a parliament and a newspaper and a party, and it produces among its minutes 1 quilt per winter, heirloom grade and the whole running mind of a county. It is at the frame, on a grey afternoon in the 3rd week of January, that the schoolyard telegraph delivers its bulletin, Anna arriving home at a dead run, breathless with the importance of being first. Down the hollow, at the Yoda's, the wash is out on a Tuesday, and every woman at the frame lifts her head, because every woman at the frame can read a line at half a mile through winter glass, and a Tuesday line means Monday went unkept, and a Monday unkept at that particular house, this particular month, means one thing, and the line itself confirms it. Small squares, dozens of them, white on white on white. A whole battalion of new diapers snapping in the January wind. Katie's daughter. Born the Monday night, quick and safe. Her mother's mother arrived on the bus from Indiana the week before. You had a hand in the letter that hurried that arrival, and Mandy had a word in it too, and none of that will ever be spoken of. By Thursday you're down the hollow with bread and a chicken and the small gown Sarah sewed, and the girl who was carried through April sits up in bed with a black-haired scrap of a daughter and receives her district like a young queen, which for this 1 week, by the custom of women older than any Ordnung she is, The line that ran thin last spring runs proud this morning. You noticed. You were meant to notice. The whole county was meant to notice. Some publishing runs in the church. The rest runs on the wire between two posts in white cotton, and always has. February seals the roads with snow and the frame fills the afternoons. March loosens everything to mud and sugar water, and the first seed flats on the window sills. And somewhere in there, on no day you could name, the year quietly closes its loop. The sponge crock is scalded and set. The notebook starts a new page. Ely spreads the seed catalogues on the winter table like a general's maps, and you plant on paper the same half-acre again. Corn in relays, 200 tomatoes, the beans, the celery. Standard rows this year. You check the singing's arithmetic without appearing to. Sarah is 14. There is time. Though you bought the crock at the February sale, a new 10-gallon, first thing, before even looking at the dish lots, and Katie's went home scalded with a sack of seed potatoes riding in it, and if you put by a few extra yards of good navy at the March remnant sale, well, cloth in the chest is like money in the tin. Days that want things always come. Let them find you ready. That is the entire religion of the cellar, and most of the religion of the county. And so it is April again, a Monday in the last week of it, in 1956, 4:30 in the morning, and the kitchen is the colour of the inside of a closed eye, and a pair of hands is finding the stove lids by memory. The worn front lid, the lifter on its nail, the firebox door with its small rough burr that has never once caught the hand that knows it. Only this year, listen. This year there are 2 sets of footsteps on the cold floor because Sarah set the sponge herself last night, unasked, and has come down in the dark to see how it rose. 15 in June. She rakes the coals while you fetch the flour, and the fire finds its voice under her hands, and you stand a moment in your own kitchen watching the oldest transaction your people know take place over a firebox, the day being handed on. The fire first, then the bread, then the day. Your hands know before your head wakes. Now hers are learning it. That is the whole of history, as this house understands history. Not a line of kings, a line of Mondays. You will live this year again now with variations. That is the truth of this life and the deep secret of its peace. The wash will go out and come in, 200 and more lines of it before Sarah marries. The bread will rise 800 times more under this roof and never once be counted. The garden will command, the jars will fill and empty and fill. The rings will thresh, the kettle will need stirring. Some November Thursday will fill some whitewash shed. Some crock somewhere is cracking finely this very minute and telling its woman it will keep. The years here do not march anywhere. They orbit. And you have long since stopped experiencing that as smallness, because you have stood on the hill and seen what the orbit builds. A fed valley, a warmed house, a made people. The English drive past looking for what you have renounced. They so rarely see the other column of the ledger, the column this whole night has been. Not what was given up, but what was kept. There is one thing you do not yet know, so I will keep it gentle, and I will keep it brief. You do not yet know that you are living in the last quiet years, that within a dozen of them, the men in offices will win the argument about the milk cans, and the school question will come to its courthouse days, and the world's roads will bring the world to Holmes County in numbers no one tonight could believe. Tour buses where the peach truck stood, and your grandchildren will sell jam and quilts to a nation strangely starved for exactly what this kitchen makes before dawn. And your people, weighing it all in the old scale, will bend where bending keeps the family whole, and hold where holding does, and go on, larger in fact every decade, doubling and doubling again, the one plain people in America that the modern age could not dissolve. The cabin on Walnut Creek is 147 years behind you tonight. The millions of English who will someday drive these hills to watch your great-granddaughters hang wash are ahead. You are the bridge, asleep on your feet in the middle, smelling of lye soap and bread. You do not need to know any of it. The sponge is set. That was always the whole assignment. So let the day come, one last time, and let us stay behind this time, here in the warm dark, and let it go on without us. The fire catches. The bread goes in. The men go to the barn, the children rise like a tide, the plates go around, 27 of them. The engine puts, the line fills, white to the far end, sheets bellying, a sentence of dresses drying in the wind, readable from 3 farms off, saying all it has ever said. This house rose early. This house runs right. Everyone here is clothed, and everyone here is fed, and everything here is mended, or will be by Friday. And now it is night on that farm, the night at the end of all these days, and you're the last one up because you are always the last one up. The stove is banked, the coals folded into their ash like a letter into an envelope, addressed to morning. The lamps are out, one by one, each with its huff and its ribbon of smoke. The house ticks and settles around its sleepers, Eli long since breathing slow, the boys tangled in their quilts, Sarah with her navy dress on the door, Anna and Levi and the baby, all of them under wool that came off this county sheep and through these hands. And you climb the stairs in the dark, and your hands find the rail. They always find the rail. And you lie down at last in the deep middle of your one recorded year, and the tiredness comes up over you like warm water in a wash boiler, from the feet slowly, and there is no part of you that fought today and no part of you that lost. And the sleep that is coming for you now is the kind the sedans on the road drive home too fast to ever find. The sleep of the used body and the quiet conscience. The sleep at the bottom of 800 jars. You are warm enough. You are fed enough. You are needed enough. Dear Lord, are you needed enough? And that, whatever the world in the flowered dress may think, is the whole inventory of a rich woman. Centuries will pass. They are passing now, softly, outside that dark window. The county, you know, will change past recognizing. The road's hard, the bus is coming, the cheese houses grown to factories, the very silence for sale. The ringer will go to a shed and then to a museum, and English mothers will point it out to bored children under glass. The kerosene lamp you polished this morning will be an antique in a shop in Berlin, Ohio, priced at more than this farm paid for a month of light. But somewhere in those hills, on the Monday morning that this recording finds your ears, a woman is rising in the dark to a wood fire and a risen sponge. Now, tonight, this Monday coming. She hangs her wash in a code her neighbours read. She counts her jars in a cellar in the fall. She's stirring apple butter in a copper kettle at this hour of the world, just as at that one, and her hands know before her head wakes. Some things do not change. The bread does not change. The hunger it answers does not change. The hands do not change, and the dark before the fire does not change, and the small-held silence of a house full of sleepers, the very silence you are lying in now, listener, this minute, wherever your bed is, that has not changed since the first woman banked the first fire, and it is not going to. So let it come. Let sleep take you the way it took her, in the farmhouse above the creek hollow, under the quilt made of the family's own years. Let the wash line empty and the wind have the sky. Let the engine fall silent and the last jar cool and seal itself in the dark with its one bright ping. The day locked down safe. Keeping. Let the lamp go out with its huff and its ribbon of smoke, and let the smell of it mean what it has always meant. Day's end, doors locked, everyone in. Let the stove tick slower and slower, the way your thoughts are ticking now. Let the county sleep. Mandy under her short line quiet. Katie with her daughter in the crook of her arm. Emma in her new kitchen dreaming of celery. Sarah with tomorrow rising in her hands. The whole valley of quilt block farms breathing together in the dark like one warm animal in deep straw. You've carried enough for one day. Whatever it was, and it was more than anybody counted, it always is. It is done now, or it will keep. Truly, it will keep. That is what the night is for. The fire is banked. The sponge is set. The morning knows the way. Let your hands unclench. There where they lie. They have earned it. Let your breath go long and slow, like the singing, like the seasons, like the stirring of the kettle, around and around and around. And dream, if you dream at all, of a line of white sheets in an April wind, filling and lifting and softly falling on a green hill in Ohio forever. Good night.